My name is Alfred Smith Landry. I was the youngest of 6 children of the family of Paul Anthony Landry and Emma Segura Landry. I was brought up on East Main Street in New Ivory, Louisiana. At that time, I was born the same year that my brother Jacob, who was 20 years older than me, graduated from law school. And he was not able to practice law because he was not yet 21, so he went to Washington to work for a congressman. Whit Martin was the name of the congressman, and then I was just brought up. My father was a sheriff until 1940, so it was, I guess, presumed that I was going to be a lawyer too. Nobody ever thought about anything else, medicine, any other profession. And so I went to St. Peter's College here in New Ivory, which was a high school, 1 through 11, and then went to UL, and then I went into the service, and I went to the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy after going overseas, and then I came back and sailed on a ship as a third engineer for a while, and then I went to law school at Tulane and finished in 1950. I was named after Al Smith, who was a Catholic, who was considered as a candidate for president. I also had a grandfather named, a great-grandfather named Jacob Smith. One of my brothers was named Jacob, and so I guess they used those two pretexts to tag me with Smitty. My formal name is Alfred Smith Benjamin Landry. I guess they needed a saint's name in there, so they threw that Benjamin in there. At UL, I started out and I was in pre-law, and I got 4 semesters in there before I went into the service. And then at the Merchant Marine Academy, I studied marine engineering. I have a degree in marine transportation from the Merchant Marine Academy. My mother never wanted me to continue going to sea, and so after I got out of the academy, I got on a ship out of New Orleans, and it was a passenger banana ship called the Antigua United Fruit Company, and we'd go to Havana, entertain the passengers, and then go to Guatemala. Every 2 weeks we'd come back. Guatemala, we picked up the bananas and came back to New Orleans. And, without my being aware of it, during that summer of 1947, my mother arranged through my brother to have me admitted to law school. So one September when the ship came in, they said, "You're in law school." So I went to law school. I didn't know a thing about law school. I walked into some class with a professor named Mitchell Franklin. Nobody ever understood Mitchell Franklin. I mean, even the seniors didn't understand what he was talking about. But I presumed that they did. And it wasn't until later, till I got to be friendly with some of them, that I found out that they didn't understand what he was talking about either. And that was my introduction to law school. But I enjoyed law school, 3 years at Tulane, and started practicing here in New Ivory with my brother Jacob and Jack Cousin and Guyton Watkins, all of whom are now deceased. And we practiced in a little 2-story building on there near the corner of Main and Fisher Street. The building is still there. Dupuy Insurance Agency was on the bottom floor. We were on the top. And I practiced there for a couple of years. And I was called into active duty in the Navy and left and was assigned to a ship, the USS Helen, a heavy cruiser. And we went to Korea and bombed the coast of Korea for a couple of years. I came back, and by that time I had gotten married and we had a child. And so we came back to Bremerton, Washington, and stayed there for a while. And then the ship was moved to San Diego, and then we had to leave again because the Korean War was still on. Went out to Korea and bombed the east coast of Korea for a few months, and then the war ended. My wife was Adrienne Mouton from Lafayette. She was one of 6 children. She graduated from College of the Sacred Heart in Grand Coteau, and we have had 11 children. But early practice was very simple. we handled everything except even criminal. In those days, there was a system whereby indigent defenders were given assistance through one of the local council. Your father was one of them, and when your name came up on the list, you had to defend the alleged criminal. And even if it was a murder case, you had to do it. And you may not have had any experience in that area, but you had to do it because there was no such thing as an indigent defender board or anything like that. I did real estate litigation, a lot of insurance defense litigation. And then that's evolved. I never did really like litigation. I didn't like the confrontation. I didn't like the weekends just spent worrying about what was going to come up on Monday morning. So I never did really go for that. So I'm doing mainly real estate and succession law now, transactional law, I guess you'd call it, and no criminal. I don't do any criminal. I don't do divorces. I don't do domestic relations. I've handled some big cases involving a lot of money. One of them was the Thibault case, Thibaut, involving a dispute between warring sides of the family. And that was one of my most memorable cases. There were brothers and sisters against brothers and sisters, and even though some of them were first cousins, they split up that way on different sides, and that was a most interesting case. It was tried in Donaldsonville, Louisiana. I remember going to Donaldsonville and trying that case for several days. It was successful. We got a $2 million judgment. I never did like litigation because I agonize over the preparations of litigation, and I prefer not to do that. And I don't have to do it anymore, so I don't do it. Yeah, I had cases with different lawyers like Lawrence Seymour, Louis Cyr, Bob Johnson and Milton LeBlanc were among the first plaintiff lawyers. We didn't have a big plaintiff practice until 1950 when it all started to be popular. Young lawyers were proliferating and they had to have a way to make money. And so they became plaintiff lawyers. Oil and gas was not that open to them at that time unless they had a particular industry client. And so plaintiff law was the thing and I think, and then offshore practice got to be a good practice. You had to know some maritime law. And Texaco said that workers on offshore platforms were seamen, and went to the U.S. Supreme Court, and that popularized the idea of maritime practice, and so we all became maritime lawyers of a sort. And that was particularly suited to me because I had gone to the Merchant Marine Academy, and I knew something about the Jones Act and maritime law before all of that happened. I'm still practicing. I'm still a partner of the firm of Landry, Watkins, Rapask, and Bro. They may want to get rid of me, but they haven't been able to yet. And I think that I still have my mental acuity, and as long as I do, and as long as I have clients and want to continue practicing, I'm going to do so. One of these days, I may not realize that I'm losing it, and I'm sure my wife will tell me, and then I'll have to retire. But right now, nobody has suggested it, and I enjoy meeting people. And my practice has changed, of course. I don't do any litigation anymore. I do mainly successions and titles and contracts and leases and transactional law, I think they call it. And I enjoy it very much. I enjoy meeting the people and having a relationship with the clients. And they keep coming back, so most of them are satisfied, I think. In high school, I went to St. Peter's College, and it was run by the Christian Brothers. And we had 11 grades in those years, and there were 11 brothers plus a principal, 12. And they were all very good, very demanding, and very strict in the way that they handled us. We didn't misbehave. You got out of line, they'd whack you. but they were good, strong men. And this was during the 30s, during the Depression days. And I've since, all of them are deceased now, but I had some great brothers, and they're the ones who influenced me the most. I was an altar boy at St. Peter's Catholic Church over here, and Father Langlois, an old Frenchman, was the pastor, and he influenced me. He had a sexton named Monsieur Léon, who walked around with his white beard full of stains, and wine and tobacco stains, and never spoke to us altar boys. And he was a bell ringer and a sexton, but mainly the brothers at St. Peter's College influenced me. And after that, the Birch Reed Academy was okay, and at Tulane I was influenced by some very good professors, and so I am very happy to have had the experience of learning from these men. But mainly the Christian brothers, when I was in high school, influenced me the most. I was the president of the Louisiana Association of Defense Counsel, which was an honor accorded me when we had our convention in London of that year. And I've been president of the Chamber of Commerce. I got the Outstanding Young Man Award in New Iberia. In my life, the most satisfaction has been my family, of course. I had always wanted to have a large family. I married Adrienne Mouton from Lafayette, who had the same aspirations, and we've reared these children, and as I say, there are no serial killers among them. They've all done really well. They're all supporting themselves, and so they have given us the greatest satisfaction. So I would consider that to be our greatest accomplishment.